Which villain actually had a point? I would say Magneto. He always thought that humans would wipe mutants out. And to be fair, they tried to. Tom from the Tom and Jerry cartoons. Mice are disease spreading freeloading vermin and he was just doing his job as a houseguard. He often gave the mouse plenty of warning to vacate the premises. Darth Vader wanted Luke to join him so they could overthrow the Emperor and bring peace to the galaxy. Not quite what you meant. But I find the story of Medusa quite sad. She was originally a beautiful woman. She was so beautiful that she catches the eye of Poseidon. Poseidon is a god and he gets what he wants. He wants her. So he rapes her in a temple to Athena. Athena, despite being the goddess of wisdom, is all well you should have known better than to get raped inside my temple. And she punishes Medusa by turning her into a gorgon. So Medusa has now been raped and lost everything and she can't even talk to anyone about it. Everyone that looks at her turns to stone and dies. So Medusa retreats and lives in solitude. Until a hero comes looking to kill her just for the fame. Then another hero and another. She spends years dodging men who would kill her because of her curse. Tormented because of a choice made for her. Until one day one of those heroes, Perseus, actually succeeds and murders her. She wasn't a villain with a point. She was a tragic story to warn girls about the perils of being too beautiful. Red Hood Jason Todd basically wanted two things: tighter control over Gotham's criminal underworld. If you can't destroy it, at least make sure you're not trafficking people or selling drugs to kids. And the Joker's head on a platter. Batman's morals obligated him to interfere. But I honestly don't think most of the audience really had a problem with either of those goals. Ultron. He probably spent 5 minutes on YouTube and decided that humanity had to go. Man Ray had it right all along. That definitely was Patrick's wallet. MR. Freeze only wanted to steal enough money to invest in cryogenic research to prolong and cure his wife of cancer. But Batman kept kicking his ass lol. Jaws. Shark's gonna shark. Squidward. SpongeBob is the story of mildly retarded sponge and an extremely retarded starfish bothering their neighbor who just wants to be left alone. Brigadier General Frank Hummel, Ed Harris, in The Rock. He wants to give money to the families of Recon Marines who died on clandestine missions but who the government wouldn't compensate. Benny from the musical Rent. He just wanted his friends to get jobs and pay their rent like responsible adults. He even goes so far as to offer his 2 former roommates free rent and guaranteed jobs in their field. In New York City. Which is not only one of the most expensive places to live in the world, but also one of the most saturated art markets in the world. All he asks in return is that they get Maureen to cancel her Etty performance art so that businessmen who own a property can develop it. But no, that would be selling out. Then his friends act like these at a cafe and shame him in front of his business colleagues. Then, to add insult to injury, Angel kills his dog. She kills his dog and the protagonists just laugh it off. Terry Benedict from Ocean's 11. I mean, who wouldn't be pissed off about being robbed of $80 million? Dr. Doofenshmirtz from Phineas and Ferb. His brother was such a self-entitled D. And his parents obviously had favorites. I don't know if he had a point. But I wanted Gerard Butler to win in Law-Abiding Citizen. Roy Batty. Blade Runner. The replicants were just trying to survive. They were created to be slaves. And despite what everyone chose to believe, the replicants had complicated human emotions and experiences. All they wanted was the chance to live a long, happy life. There's nothing wrong with that. Also, Roy's final speech, especially the Tears in Rain line, which was an improv, was incredibly moving. Poison Ivy being an environmental villain felt funny to me even as a kid. I actually heard a joke the other day about an alternate ending to that movie, where Captain Hook wins the duel and sends Peter back to London in a body bag. It's a good joke, if a little dark, but it does require a deadpan delivery. Who's the villain in Death Note? L has a point. Light has a point. Near and Mellow are just annoying. Jim Leahy. Sure. He might be a drunken itbird, but all he wants as trailer park supervisor is to make Sunnyvale a half decent place to live. Instead, He is getting constantly ducked over by nearly everyone in the park. Ozymandias was right. In order to stop a world in the brink of nuclear war, tragedy needs to strike in order to unite all of mankind against a common enemy. Millions died so that billions would be saved. Morgan Freeman in Gone Baby Gone. Spoilers. He plays a police chief that kidnaps a child from a druggy mother and fakes the child's death so he can raise her in a normal home. The hero finds her, reports the crime. The police rescue the child, arresting the chief. Child goes back to druggy mother. The last scene shows the mother about to go on a date in 2 minutes and hadn't even arranged a sitter yet. It's a heartbreaking movie. It's a great example of movie where right and legal are often on exact opposite ends of the spectrum. Loki. His father raised him to hate his own species, frost giants, and had him in Thor's shadow his whole life. He is heartbroken when he finds out he is one of them, and can never be on the throne of Asgard. Odin does not deny this, so he lets Loki go as far as killing his biological father to show that he is worthy of the throne. Odin does not care in the slightest, and when Loki is hanging off a cliff saying that he could have defeated his enemies for Odin, for Asgard, Odin says no, causing Loki to attempt to kill himself. Littlefinger has a point. He may be a callous, ruthlessly ambitious son of Rick, but in an oligarchical society obsessed with inherited status, he's basically a self-made man. I see him as a representative of meritocracy, and it's hard not to respect that even though his methods and underlying motives are extremely questionable. Dr. Doom. Skip the article and just read the comic. I don't want to spoil it if you haven't heard it, but when I first read it, I thought holy it, that's actually a pretty good reason. Handsome Jack. Pandora was a ducking it hole. It was filled with the worst people. Sure, killing them all might not have been the best way to deal with it, but it wasn't the worst idea. Pagan Min. The alternative was a state whose economy depended on the illegal drug trade or an oppressive theocracy. I always thought Ammon from the Legend of Korra made some pretty valid arguments. He obviously was creepy and authoritative, but his message really seemed to resonate with non-benders, whom many seem to feel genuinely oppressed and overshadowed by benders. Taillock especially did not help in that regard. In the modernizing world of Avatar, one could also argue the role of the bender is becoming increasingly obsolete. As messed up as it may be, I find myself siding with the villain more and more the older I get. The lemon stealing whore. Most of those damn lemons were all over the ground anyway, so she stole a couple. Does that warrant punishment? In Fallout 1, the Master is turning everyone into mutants in order to ascend humanity. The mutants are stronger, smarter, and more adapted to surviving the wasteland compared to the normals. Laboratories have been built for the sake of producing these mutants, and there is even a religion dedicated to the worship of the Master. You are tasked with putting a stop to this, and it isn't until you find out that the mutants are sterile that you can then convince the Master that his plan simply won't work. If everyone is turned to mutants, they will all eventually die out due to being unable to reproduce. Giving him proof of this information causes him to give up on this idea and kill himself. This in my opinion is A+ character development and a case where the antagonist isn't necessarily a villain. You oppose his ideas, but he isn't going through with something for the sake of being evil. Being a mutant has clearly defined benefits, and the final confrontation you two have makes him realize all his work has been for nothing just because of that one flaw. He realizes then that being a mutant is not the best course for humanity. More than the unity will bring about the Master race. Master. One able to survive, or even thrive, in the wasteland. As long as there are differences, we will tear ourselves apart fighting each other. We need one race. One goal. One people. To move forward to our destiny. Arthas. You could argue killing everyone in Stratholme was a bit severe, but time was of the essence. They didn't know who was and wasn't infected, and the plague was something they really needed to nip in the bud. Benny from Rent. He's a young black guy from New York who's made good and wants to use his success to improve his neighborhood, and his asshole poor because its cool hipster friends are constantly undermining him. And yet he pays for the funeral of the person who murdered his dog. Looks out for Angel's boyfriend after the funeral while everyone else is itching about their personal drama. And is the only one besides Maureen Joan who recognizes that pretending to be poor because you think it makes you artistic is stupid as duck. Team Benny for life. Also, basically any antagonist in a competition movie who's actually good at what they do because they've been training their whole lives and dedicate huge amounts of hard work to being very good at it, and are not exactly thrilled about having to face and potentially lose to some schmuck who picked up musical theater, karate, baseball, what have you 2 weeks ago to impress a girl, and is only good at it because the plot says so. Edit because duck. I haven't listened to Rent in forever and mixed up the names. Maureen sucks. The landlord in Rent. Just pay your ducking rent, you little hits. Muto from the first Pokemon movie. He was created just to be a tool for destruction. And then eventually favors that our own actions decide who we are. And to not be judged on where we came from. Muto just wanted to find his place in the world. Magneto. He's probably the most justified villain ever. Agent Smith from The Matrix. I'd like to share a revelation that I've had during my time here. It came to me when I tried to classify your species and I realized that you're not actually mammals. Every mammal on this planet instinctively develops a natural equilibrium with the surrounding environment, but you humans do not. You move to an area and you multiply until every natural resource is consumed, and the only way you can survive is to spread to another area. There is another organism on this planet that follows the same pattern. Do you know what it is? A virus. Human beings are a disease. A cancer of this planet. Surprised it hasn't been mentioned, but in The Karate Kid, Johnny tries to warn Daniel that his violent and unpredictable behavior will not be tolerated. Sylvester the cat. I hate that annoying Tweety bird. Same goes for Wally. Coyote. The Wicked Witch. She just wanted her sister's shoes. Glinda comes along, magics them onto Dorothy's feet, and antagonizes the witch. Hannibal Lecter. That flute player was awful. Ed Rooney from Ferris Bueller. It's his job to make sure kids maintain attendance and don't skip for bogus reasons. His motivation may have been messed up, but his end goal was appropriate. Shere Khan in the live-action Jungle Book. Don't let that human in. His dad set fire to my face. Nobody listens. Don't let that human in. He'll set fire to the forest. Nobody listens. Human sets fire to forest. Human kills Shere Khan with fire. Everyone is inexplicably happy that the endangered tiger died. Barry Dillon on Archer. Archer dropped him twice. Abandoned him in space. Blew him up. And sodomized his fiancée. Full stop. Kronk's shoulder devil. Soren. The Spider-Man villain. Not the other one. But I don't want to cure cancer. I want to turn people into dinosaurs.